freeze drying a bunch more apples.
Remember I said I was probably done with the apples for the year? Well, the Fujis were looking wonderful, so we went to get a few pounds just for snacking. Ended up getting like 64 pounds. So we're going to do more apples. And remember I said I probably wouldn't do cubes again because it was so tough? Well, we're going to try cubes again also, because we're going to put them through the peeler, slicer, corer thing, and then try putting them through this French fry cutter. So we'll have the slices like this, push it through, and hopefully it should come out with cubes. So let's give this a try. Once again, we've got water with some ascorbic acid in there to keep the apples from turning brown. And then check this thing out. And according to the information, that's sharp. Don't touch it, you'll hurt yourself. Okay, and wrapped with tissue paper. I'll go ahead and rinse these pieces off. Let's see if this thing works. And it's made for potatoes, it claims. And so, oh, I should probably put something under that to catch it, maybe a flat plate or something. Then I can catch them and throw them into there, or a bowl. Let's see if one of these will fit. I think it's too big for that. Yep. That's perfect. That way it'll catch it, and then I'm going to just set that on top of there. So this way they're already thin layers this way. Now I put it through that. It should end up with cubes of that size. And it says you put that on there and then you hit it quickly. Again, that's potatoes. I don't know what this needs, so I'll just do it firmly. That went right down there. Oh, that's great.
Oh,
that's so much faster. All right, we have little cubes. That'd be great in cereal or pies, cookies, muffins. I'm happy with that. Wow, I think I'm gonna like that. So it looks like also I could do a couple of apples at a time before I empty that. Wow. So I'm going to just go ahead and scoop them out of the water and ascorbic acid. Wow, that's full. That's a lot. That was so fast. My gosh.
That was 13 apples.
Okay. I think we only did like 8 or something on the tray before. Yeah, that was just so fast, and that was faster than what we usually do of quartering them. Let them drain out a bit, and then I will add more ascorbic acid to that. I wish I could really figure out the right concentrations. Boy, I love the size of these. That's going to be great for so many uses. And I'm going to pile them pretty high on there. This is going to be a pretty big batch. I'm going to add the stainless steel rod in there for the thermometer placement right now, in case they freeze really solidly and makes it difficult to do later. Okay, and then that can go to the freezer for pre-freezing, and we'll get the other trays filled like this. I think you can get ones that have different size grids and different patterns. We wanted a small size, so this is the one we have, and I don't know how it would work for potatoes, you know, making like little cube hash browns or something, but for this it seems to be pretty nice. So kind of center it in there, put the top on there, and then you press firmly, it says. But again, it's talking about potatoes. Has this little sticker that you can put on there. It looks like a decal. Push potato onto the blades. I think if I were doing potatoes, I think I would flatten off the one end a little. I would never want to have to slam it onto the grid, because that's what they showed, is taking it and slapping it onto the grid so it stays standing up. With my luck, I'm going to slip off the potato and have my hands hit that. So I think I would just cut a very small flat spot on the potato. Anyway, and then cut that. If it's taller than 4 inches, cut it down, push cover down hard and fast. And for apples, I don't know if it's quite as big of a deal because they're softer than a potato and seems to go pretty easily. And then don't take this off while you're over the floor, because then the apple pieces end up on the floor instead of in there. At least they did for me. Oh yeah, it has like a plasticky grid in here that fits between all the blades. That's how it pushes all the way through. And of course, if your apple was too big around, then that would be a problem, but you could shave off the outside edges just slightly to make it fit in that square. Make sure that those are mixed in and coated with the ascorbic acid water. Help keep them from turning brown, because I know sometimes I don't get enough, especially on subsequent batches. It's like I start out with enough, and then as I add more and more fruit, I don't get enough of it. Or maybe because the sugars are in the water, maybe that changes it. I don't really know. Maybe I should just change water and everything every batch or two. Anyway, I need to do enough. If I did hundreds of them, then I'd get good at it and get the science down to perfection. Wow, yeah, there's a lot of apple in there. So we'll get these on the trays. We'll meet you at the freeze dryer later. I started the freeze dryer 2.5 hours ago, thinking that I could get the apples in there as soon as I finished cutting them and getting them on trays. Well, in the meantime, my sister's machine finished my beef stroganoff batch, so I needed to take care of that. Now I'm finally back to it, and it's been running for 2.5 hours, and it's about negative 44 degrees already. More than cold enough to get the apples in there. The apples still aren't all the way frozen because they've only been in the freezer for an hour or so, because I started the freeze dryer while I was doing part of the apples. Now, let's get the apples weighed and get them in the freeze dryer. The food you put in the freeze dryer does not have to be weighed. I weigh it for a couple of reasons. One, inquiring minds like to know. And two, I want to make sure I don't overload it, or at least not too much. So 1826, and then I'll slide a thermometer in that space if I can find the space I had. There it is. 1961, 1943. I think this is going to be a pretty big batch. And 1934. Okay, first we'll get them into the freeze dryer, and then we'll calculate how much the total net weight is going in there, because that could be interesting. The display temperature is saying -45. Thermometer along the side is saying about -40, and this is in the back, and my machine freezes from the back forward, so it's warmer in the front in general than it is in the back on mine, and it's cold back there. And the apples are down to about 24 degrees. Get a good seal on that. And we have a ring all the way around, so we should have a good seal. So that batch of apples is about 10.3 pounds of apples in there. So that's a good size load without really overdoing it. Apples have a lot of water percentage-wise, so it's going to be close to maxing out the capacity of this particular machine. It'll finish freezing in the next 3 or 4 hours. Actually, I'm going to add a little bit more time to that because they're not frozen all the way. They're only down to 22, 24 degrees. So I'll give it another hour or two, and then it'll go into the main dry cycle, which on this machine is 30 hours or until it thinks it's dry, and then it jumps to the final dry, which is set for 11 hours. We'll be back in about 2 days, so don't go away, it'll be just a second. We're also doing another batch in my sister's machine. Don't know how much of that will bother showing. It's the same stuff, different machine. We'll see you in just a minute. So I'm adding a batch of those apples to my sister's machine too, because I kept using her machine. So I'm not giving her an opportunity to get her stuff in. I'm going to get another batch of these apples in there. Because again, we bought 64 pounds of apples when we meant to get enough for snacking. And that slicer, that French fry cutter worked so well to cut these cubes. It made it so much faster and easier. Now I'll probably do more of those. Anyway, I started this about an hour and a quarter ago. It says that the tray temperature where the thermistor is about 22 degrees. The thermometer down along the side is about -30, and the one that she has up on the top and the back is about -10. Plenty cold to get those apples in and get them going. It was good enough a while ago, I just wasn't down here and ready yet. So we'll go get them over here. And we've got a nice ring all the way around there for the seal. So this batch is just barely under 10.3 pounds, so it's almost exactly the same as what I just put in mine. And we'll be back for this one in about 2 days. Now tell it to continue. See you in a couple of days. Don't go away, be just a second. My sister's machine just finished a few minutes ago, and it had said it was going to be done like 10 hours ago. But I'd added a bunch more time, 10 more hours, to the extra time. It already has 12 or 14 hours of extra dry time programmed onto it. But because of the way these little cubes were on there, it still wasn't enough. And I could tell that because when it said it was going to be done 10 hours ago, there was no thermometer above freezing yet. So it wasn't done. And right now this top tray says 80 degrees. These other ones are showing pretty good. Because this one's still low and I have somewhere I'm supposed to be right now, I'm going to not take them out and weigh them. And even if I didn't have somewhere I'm supposed to be, I still wouldn't weigh them. There was no point on weighing them. That one's not done. I don't know about the others, but that one's not done. I'm not going to weigh them. So what I'm going to do is open it, switch these two, put those top and bottom into the middle where it's a little warmer, give it a couple more hours, and then we'll start the dry check if the thermometers are up to temperature. So I'm going to open the drain valve, get them out, and switch them. And I've mentioned that a few times. This is the value of the thermometers. I was able to add all that extra time without ever stopping it because I could tell they were still frozen. The temperature on this said it was plenty warm because of where the thermistor is. These weren't ready. So I'm going to just switch tray 1 and 2, and my gosh, they look beautiful. I'm so happy with those little teeny cubes. And that's a hot tray. And that one's much cooler. Okay. Get that drain valve closed. We'll add more time. Continue. And I'll bump that up to 3. And we'll check the thermometers before that to find out if they're warm enough. It could be done, but I know that it wasn't without giving it that extra time earlier. We'll be back in a while. So I'm back to this, and it's been like 4 hours now because, you know, life gets in the way. Don't be afraid to just let it dry longer, or even let it go to basically the pause portion of it where it says it's done, and then you have to restart the cycle and rewarm it. It won't really hurt anything. Having it run the whole time uses more power than letting it go to that finished or paused kind of spot where it's the cooling unit's still going but nothing else is. That's the least amount of energy that it can use on a regular basis. Anyway, let's get them out there, weigh them, get them back in for the dry check. All of the thermometers are up to reasonable levels that I would expect. The top and bottom are at 100, the middle two are at 120. And if you remember, this one was like 85 and now it's at 120. So it's probably good now. So we'll bypass the rest of that with the down arrow. Open the drain valve. So tray 1, and that's quite toasty. And I can leave that at the same spot now because I've already done the rotation. Tray 2, 896. Wow, those are some beautiful looking apples. Tray 3, 883. Yeehaw! And 888. All right, let's get that restarted right away. More dry time, continue. And I'm going to set it for 2.5 hours to make sure I can make it back to it because I need to take care of my machine too. In fact, let's go to my machine now and do the dry check on those. Or start the dry check. So I need to bring all of this. I'll meet you over there. The batch of apples in my machine's been going for about 50.25 hours. And that includes all the pre-freeze time, because if you remember, it took me a while to get them in there. My sister's machine says, I don't remember, 42 or something hours, 47 hours, but it doesn't include the freeze time on hers, or the pre-freeze. It starts that count when you press continue. Well, it was pre-freezing for an hour or two before I finished getting them in there. They're actually not very far apart because I loaded this machine and then went over to hers and loaded her machine. So it should only be a couple hours difference at the most. We'll bypass the last few minutes of this and get them out and check them and get them back in for the dry check. So open the drain valve. Okay. And all of the thermometers on my machine are all the way up and have been for a few hours. I probably should have checked this a few hours ago. It probably didn't need quite this much. So 904, and I am going to go ahead and rotate positions on those. I'll look, make sure it's not touching, and there's space. 918, and I'll put this one on the top. And put this one down a spot. Tray 3, 916, it's going back and forth. 916, and I'll put a minus sign because it dropped back down. And 924, and I'll put this one up a spot, and this one down at this spot. Okay. So I'll close the drain valve and we'll get it restarted. So more dry time. Close the drain valve, did. And like I did with my sisters, I'll add additional time to make sure that I can get there in time. Because this time it should be dry and ready to bag. They really seem like they're done now. We're just confirming. My machine's temperatures have been up that high for a couple hours. If I had had time 3 hours ago, I would have taken them out and done the beginning of the dry check then. I didn't have time, so I just let it run. We'll be back in just a minute. The little cubes of apples in my machine are ready to come out and be checked for the final, hopefully the final dry check. And I had to add more time because I was busy with some other stuff again. Otherwise, this was supposed to be out of here like an hour ago. Let's get them out and check them now. I'll bypass the last 4.5 minutes. And all of the trays are nice and toasty. In fact, the heaters have been off now for 10.5 minutes because on mine they turn off for the last 15 minutes. Let's get them out and check them. And it's late, so I really, really hope they're done because I don't want to stay up longer. Tray 1. Gosh, those are gorgeous. 903. All right, so here's the deal. We had weight loss on those. So I had 1 gram, 1 gram, 4 grams, and 2 grams, or 3 grams and 2 grams. Anyway, there was a very small amount of weight loss on those. And because it's really late at night, I don't want to do another 2-hour check right now and then bag it tonight because by that time it won't be tonight, it'll be tomorrow morning. So I'm going to just go ahead and restart it and give it a little bit of time now, and then I'll give it the rest of the time in the morning. So I erased my old numbers, put the new numbers from now for the beginning of the weight check, because the numbers that were there and because I only put 2 boxes on my sheet for numbers, because the only numbers I'm expecting is my original number and then no change. If it's really close and I have time to do it, I have been using another space in that box, just cramming it in there and just putting the amount of time that it has been and the amount of weight loss until I get to that no change. I don't have time to do that right now, or at least I'm not willing to stay up for that, so I'm going to just put them back in. So we'll come back and see these tomorrow morning. So I'm going to actually stop this, restart it with a lower shelf temperature. So I restarted it with a lower temperature, and then I'm going to just let it set. It'll be in the final dry or the extra dry mode for another 2 hours, and then I'll let it set overnight. I'll come back and take care of it tomorrow. I need to have the peace of mind of knowing that there's no water loss for 2 hours, so that I'm comfortable that it has been properly dried. If it hasn't been properly dried, it doesn't make a lot of sense to spend all the time and money and effort into getting it really close and then putting it in an airtight bag with a little bit of moisture. So we'll come back and check it tomorrow, because it's too late for me to continue tonight on this. And I still need to go check my sister's machine, because it should be finished about now also. So if it's dry, we'll bag that one tonight. Now I'm kind of hoping it's not dry so I can wait till tomorrow. All right, it's the next day. Like I said, I'd come down the next day, rewarm it, and then take them out and weigh them for the weight check. Well, it is the next day, but it's not early. It's 19 hours later. So I had to rewarm it a couple of times because I kept getting sidetracked and busy with other projects that I was doing. And the way the machine functions, it really works out well that way. It's not a big deal just to add some time. If I'd have known it going to be this long, one of the things I probably would have considered would actually be to have taken them out last night, dumped them each tray into a bag, put that bag in the freezer, and defrosted the machine. Because that way, after I do the weight check, the machine would be ready for the next batch, because it would already be cold and it would already be almost dry. I didn't do it that way, so now I'll have to defrost it today after this is out. So let's get past the last few minutes and we'll get it checked. So open the drain valve, and as soon as the pressure is equalized, we'll get it out. Okay, tray one. And no change. That's exactly what we want to hear. And no change. We'll make sure it's not touching. No change. And no change. We'll get the machine turned off with no defrost. Because of all the starts and stops and huge amounts of time between it saying it's finished and then the overnight waiting to check, this batch is kind of an unknown as far as how long did it take to do. But I'm going to write down that it was about 52 hours. I think that's pretty close, even though it's been in there a total of like 72 hours. It's been in there so long because of getting busy with other things. So don't worry too much about letting it just run longer. It's not going to hurt anything. 39.8 kilowatt hours. And of course, it would have been considerably less if I'd been on top of it and got it out as soon as it said it was done. 909, 905, 914. So I got all the weights. Now I'm going to put these into one of the 2-gallon bags temporarily to buy myself a few minutes of time. Those are great, these little teeny cubes. Those are going to be wonderful in cereals or muffins, or you could use them in all kinds of things. And I mentioned this before, this kind of bag is not good to keep the moisture or oxygen at bay for any length of time more than just a few hours. Yeah, I literally don't use this for anything more than a few hours because I don't trust it. Well, it's proven that it lets oxygen and moisture through the bag. Okay, let's get the weights. I'll be right back. Before this was dried, it was 10.3 pounds. Now it's about 1.4 pounds. So it was 4,672 grams, 73 grams when it went in. So 4,041 grams of it was water. So the vast majority is water. To rehydrate a pound back to what it was, I need to add about 392 grams, or for 3/4 of a pound, about 294 grams. And the weight, what was 1 pound, now is 61.3 grams, and what was 3/4 of a pound is now 46 grams. So I've got those two weights because I'll probably bag it as either full pounds if it'll fit, or as 3/4 pound if a pound won't fit. We'll try out one of these bags first before we put the labels on them to make sure it will fit. But I already have the batch number on, so we've got that started. Now we'll see if a pound of this will fit. And again, a pound before it was dry, not a pound now. Now we'll see how much it needs. I'm going to just use this little cup for a scoop. I should have a bigger one, but I'd have that one. And I love the little cubes. These are going to be so good for different projects. Look at that. Those are wonderful looking. Okay. 61, it might work. 61.3. Okay, it fits. So I can get what was a whole pound into that bag. Look at that. That's going to be great. So I'm going to go ahead and pour this back out though, because I want to put the label on when the bags are flat. So that works. All right, we'll be right back with the labels. We're after 61.3 grams per bag. Oh, that's really close. That works out pretty well. I'm going to shake them down a little bit so that they kind of settle in there, and bag is full. And I have a little bit of extra, so I'm not worried if I go a teeny bit over, because I'm not going to bag that 1/3 pound in these. I'll use that for snacking and or testing. Going to add the 300 cc oxygen absorber to these bags and get them closed up. And I'm going to tuck these down the side to make sure they stay out of the zipper, because these are pretty full. Now get these things heat sealed. As always, heat sealing all the way at the top of the bag. Ah, beautiful. Nice even seal. It's one of the things I like about the zipper, is it helps flatten out that top portion of the bag. And we'll get the gross weights on the bags in case we need that in the future. So 88 grams. If it goes between two numbers, I take that higher number. These are ready for the shelf, but first, going to my sister's, bring a couple of things. I'm going to use this bag, and I'll just dump the apples from that batch into here. So then I can take all the leftovers and put them in one bag and probably do something with them as far as rehydrating or using them in some fashion. So let's go to my sister's place. Well, it's kind of ridiculous how long this batch has taken, because now it's the 31st. We put them in on the 28th. They should have been out yesterday, but because of timing, I couldn't get around to the dry check until it was too late to finish it, and then had so many things to do today that now it's almost 7 o'clock at night and I'm finally finishing the dry check. At least I hope it's finished. So I'm going to bypass those last 3 minutes because I'd restarted it, added time, started it again, added more time, trying to get to a time when I could get to it. Going to add this little piece in here to make sure that I don't end up with a lot of air coming out of that machine and coming under the trays when I put them on here and lifting it up, because there's a good amount of air from the cooling unit that comes out this way. So get the drain valve open, and as soon as the pressure's equalized, we can get them out. Starting with tray 1. Oh, that's toasty. And that's no change. Tray 2, so no change. So tray 3, 83, no change. And tray 4. And no change. I'm going to turn this off using no defrost. I'll put this baffle in place. And it's a very big ice load this time. I'll wait until we're done bagging to start this so we don't have to listen to it. You can see how handy this table extension is going to be. You can put 3 trays. Oh, I'll bet if I turn one of them sideways, we could put all 4 trays on there. So we can easily have all 4 trays on that extension. Nice. I brought the bag from my house over here. So I'm going to go ahead and put the apple pieces in. Oh, we still need the weights. I forgot. Still need the final weights. I need to take the thermometers out and weigh them. I don't have them in order. This one's tray 3, so get the thermometer out. 874, 888, 893. And tray 4, and 879. Now, I'm going to go ahead and pour them all in here. Wow, you can't overstate how good these are. All right, get the calculations, and then we can print the labels. That is a very full bag. Got my labels on the bags. It's what batch number it is, and on this set, because they're mine, I add a J on the ones that I get from my sister to differentiate them from the ones that come out of my machine. Otherwise, I wouldn't know if it's my batch 96 or her batch 96. Then it's the date that it went in, and then what it is, how much it weighed before drying, how much water was taken out, and then a possible way of rehydrating it if you want to, because these are great dry. And then I've got the batch number up here in felt pen in case this label fails. Yeah, I brought my other scale over, and I don't think it shows up on that camera. So I'm not going to worry about it. And I'm going to scoop. I need 67.2 grams average per bag to equal the pound. A small sample. I'm going to go ahead and just leave it in this bag. I'll get the oxygen absorbers in and then get them sealed. Tuck it down the side. And you don't have to tuck it down the side. I tuck it down the side so that I have less of a chance of getting it stuck in the zipper or the seal area. And then I, whoop, come on, get in there. And then I try to slide them over a little bit so that I don't lose my place. I'm grabbing the 2 ends and just kind of pulling to get that seal closer together so I can zip it shut. Now we'll get them heat sealed. And then press, and then hold a couple of seconds to let it cool a bit. And then as soon as they're all done, we'll add the gross weight, and these will be ready for storage. And the spring up inside here, there's 2 springs to push this bar down. Those springs are a great deal stronger than on my machine. So this part is pretty similar, but this last 1/4 inch or so takes a lot more force on this one. It's a good looking seal, and occasionally check to make sure it's actually sealing, that it doesn't just look like it's sealing. Those can go onto the shelves now, and they're going in bin 45. At least I think so. Bin 45. So adding this batch of apples to bin 45, and then that'll be added to the computer system. That 10 more bags of dried apples. And there's still enough room for at least another batch in here. There's 7 freeze dryer loads of food already in here, and there's still probably room for one more. And I have one more that I'm going to put in here because I want it at the top, because I plan on doing something else with it soon. Yeah, I can get 7 or 8 loads worth in one of these tubs. I have space for this one more tub on the shelf. After that, I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to do. I'll probably start pulling every bin out and adding 1 or 2 bags, whatever will fit. Apples, another batch of apples. I've already done 10 pounds of apples today. Now we're doing another 10 pounds of apples. And that's 10 pounds after they've been peeled and cored. So it's probably 13, 14 pounds right now. And we've shown plenty of using the little apple peeler corer. So we'll move on to slicer, or the dicer, and some cinnamon. Instant little cubes. That thing works so nicely. And sometimes you still might end up with a little piece of seed inside there. You can either cut it out now, you could take the layers apart and so that it's not in there, or you could fish it out later. We're probably fishing it out later. And for this size apples, we need about 8 apples per 2.5 pound tray. So now, we'll scoop out a big old scoop of them. Let that drain for a couple of minutes. There's a little piece of the seed and core. Like I said, after it goes through, you can chuck those out if you don't want them in there. And they show up pretty well, and they're not a big deal. Going to weigh out approximately how much I want on a tray, so 0 out that. And I know that I want about 1134 per tray. Now, I'm gonna add cinnamon to that. Anyway, that's all I do. Just add the amount of cinnamon I want and just give it a toss and rotate. And it seems to coat them pretty evenly. Now, onto a tray. And then get those on there. And you can see, probably, that this is mounded really high. Maybe I can show that a little bit by tilting it. Anyway, once I push it all down though, it's barely taller than the tray. And by pushing them, compacting them a bit, then it also will have better heat transfer between the pieces. It won't be all light and fluffy on there. Okay, as soon as we get all 4 trays, well, actually 1 tray at a time, these are going into the freezer for pre-freezing because the freeze dryer is full right now. I'm actually using a set of my sister's trays to get these apples ready. I know what else I want to show, so I still want to show one more piece.
Yeehaw!
So that will go to the freezer for pre-freezing, and we'll see those with the other 3 trays when it's time to get them in the freeze dryer. So this might finally be my last batch of apples for the year. We have another batch of the little cubes of apples with cinnamon. This is the last week for picking apples at our favorite little orchard. My sister plans on doing another set of apples, but it'll be later. So we'll have a couple of other batches that you'll see first, and then finally we'll get back to a few more apples for her. I don't know if we'll show any of those unless there's something particularly interesting with them. But there will be a few more, so numbers will skip ahead. And we've done, I don't even know, 150, 200 pounds of apples between us and my sister. And not all of them got freeze-dried. Some of them just got snacked in other forms. So we've got this one more set of apples in here. They're all pre-frozen. They've been in here for a few days. And as soon as my sister's freeze dryer is cold enough, those will go in. So let's... So that's going directly into her freeze dryer. It's pre-cooling, and you'll probably never see these again. Well, maybe you'll show these after they come out. Okay, do we need anything else? Oh, I want to show a little bit more about this. So it has this, I'm going to pop this out of there. This pops out for cleaning, and then this white piece is the cleaning. So when you get stuff inside these grooves, it'll prevent it from being pushed down all the way. So this piece just pulls off, and because it fits those spaces, it pulls out any pieces that are still in there, and then you can just wash this all out. And how often you need to do this probably depends immensely on which apple you're using, what variety, how soft they are, things like that, I'm guessing. The first time we did it, we did more than 20 pounds before we did that because we didn't think about it, and then suddenly it didn't cut all the way. And that's when we looked at it and it was pretty full. So I'm guessing we probably should do it like every 10 pounds, so every freeze dryer load. And so if you're doing multiple freeze dryer loads in a row, maybe you need to do that each set. I don't really know. And then this blade assembly just pops out of there, and you can wash this off. It says all this is dishwasher safe, but I think I would hand wash it, and so I wouldn't want anything banging into that or damaging anything. So I think I would just hand wash it because it's not like there's a lot of pieces here. Oh, and to get the pieces in there that might stick, a straw cleaner worked really well. There's one little bit right there. So I just rinsed it off without doing anything else. There's one little bit right there, so that might rinse off. But if you need to, you can just use a straw cleaner. I just realized maybe not everybody has a straw cleaner. So this is a straw cleaner, and it's just like a teeny little bottle brush, and it's to clean the inside of straws. Anyway, so it also will fit in all these, and I do it from this side so that I'm not at the sharp side. This is the sharp side, this is the not sharp side, and I just kind of brush it into the corner and push up because I don't want to draw down against those blades either. And of course you could go this way and pull up this way and pull out any pieces too. Anyway, it doesn't seem like it's very many pieces stick, but this is a method to get them out of there if they do. I can't think of anything more that I need to babble about on this process. I'm going to